Hey, what's up? What's going on? Arvin here, and welcome to Driven to Draw. And today I'm going to be drawing a puppy on a post-it note with a ballpoint pen. So let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Driven to Draw. My name is Arvin, and we're going to be starting off today's sketch demo with drawing a puppy. So drawing dogs and cats and things is not something that I typically do, but one of the things I always want to stress when we start to draw is that if you start to learn fundamentals and you start to nail down those fundamentals, it really doesn't matter what subject you're trying to draw. Because everything comes down to practicing the fundamentals, and once you learn those fundamentals at the beginning, you can kind of translate or transfer that kind of knowledge into drawing any other kind of subjects. So when I start off with this puppy, what I've done is I'm going to just rough out the dimensions. So I've started off with a rough circle. I divided that in half, and I've got this little triangular type of shape where I'm trying to establish how wide the nose needs to be in relationship with the rest of the head. So I'm just going to template and rough this thing out, and I'm constantly kind of going back and forth and measuring things. Then I'm going to start adding some eyes, and then I'm going to add the nose. And then once I've got what I feel comfortable with as far as the proportions go, I'll start to darken some areas in and just define them a little bit. Ballpoint pens are really nice to work with because you can get a wide range of what I would call pressure sensitivity, so you can get some darks to lights and lights to darks, and you get a really nice value distribution with ballpoint pen, similar to what you would see with using pencil. The only thing, of course, is that you can't erase. So now I've got the eyes laid in. I'm going to start to shade that in, and then you can see some other shapes that I have around it, which is what I'm using for highlights. So I typically like to just leave that white, or just leave it to the color of the post-it note or whatever paper you're going to use, so that I just shade around it, so that gives it a little bit of shininess to the sketch, or to the eyes. I'm going to add some details here to the nose. And then I'll start to define the shape of the nose a little bit more. And then we'll just lay in some lines here just to shade it in. There we go. It gives it, you can get a little bit of depth as you start to shade a little bit darker here in the center, and then leave the top a little bit lighter. Then I'll go into the tongue. Has some light shading there. Now, drawing the fur is a little bit tricky here, because what I do with fur is start with a layered approach. So I'll rough in some lines, and then as I start to define the shape of the head or just around certain areas, I'll lay in a secondary sketch or hatching of just showing the fur. So I start to layer this, then you can see that you get a little bit more depth on the fur. You just keep building and building and building on top of it, so it adds more depth and volumizes those shapes. Gonna do the same thing here on the side of the head, and then we're gonna darken up the tongue a little bit to get some contrast, so we know the shape. And I'm gonna start to come back and render a little bit of the side of the face of the puppy. And then we're just gonna keep working back and forth. See, there's another layer for the fur, and I'm now going to continue on to the front, and I'm going to just keep doing the layered approach around the shape. Now we're going to continue on with the other side of the ear. I'm going to do the same approach, which is the layered approach. I'm going to mix it up a little bit here too, just to show a little bit of randomness here in the fur. So you can notice here I just have some dark to light and just keep adding a little bit more randomized squiggly lines for the fur. We're going to go back here to the other side. As I work through this drawing, sometimes I just want to make it even, so I want to make sure that the ears are relatively the same size on each side. So I might add a little bit of fur. And then we're going to do the same thing here, volumize the rest of the shape of the dog's head. And then we'll add some whiskers. One thing I really want to stress is that when you're doing these things or these exercises, just have fun. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just go in and just start to break things down, measure things out, and just worry about your technique later. Just make sure that when you start off that the foundation of the drawing, the proportions are right. You put more effort on that before you get into shading, because you don't want to shade something that just doesn't look right. And you should take that approach for any kind of drawing. Always work on proportions. Work on proportions, measure things out, make sure that they're looking good before you start to go into the rendering phase and shading things out. And just enjoy that process. Oh, and by the way, if you have not already, please be sure to subscribe to this channel for more tips on drawing. That's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll see you next time on Driven to Draw. Have a good one.